Good morning, everyone. How is it going today? In this video, I'm going to be going over a company called Slack, ticker symbol WORK. Now, I've had my eye on this company since it IPO'd last year, but they recently came out with earnings that despite showing some pretty good growth, investors didn't like what they saw, and they sent the shares tumbling down over 15% to the mid-20s. In this video, I'm going to tell you why this down move in the stock could be a really good buying opportunity. Now, before I get to it, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has already subscribed to my channel and for hitting the like button in previous videos. I really appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, I like to find short-term and long-term trading and investing opportunities in typically lower-priced stocks. I like to look for undervalued, underappreciated stocks with high growth potential and talk about all other things finance-related as well. Now, if that's something that interests you, please subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any future trading and investing ideas. And also, I am not a financial advisor, so please do all of your own research before buying any of these stocks. Now, Slack Technologies was founded back in 2009, and the core group that started Slack is mostly made up from the founders of Ludicorp, which created the image and video hosting service called Flickr. Now, Slack says they are a channel-based messaging platform, and with Slack, people can work together more efficiently. They say they can connect all their software tools and services and find the information they need to do their best work all within a secure enterprise-grade environment. So basically, Slack is a workplace communication tool. It's a simple place for messaging, tools, and files. Now, here is a short clip for more on what Slack is, and then we'll get into the earnings and then the charts.
Slack is where work happens. It's a new layer of technology that brings together people, applications, and data, and it's replacing email around the world. The easiest way to understand it is that Slack replaces email inside your company. It's enormously important, but inside of a company, it works so poorly. Imagine a 10,000 person company. On average, each person sends 30 emails a day. That's 300,000 emails every day. But consider things from one individual's perspective. Today, she got 23 emails. That's not even 1/100% of all the communication that happened inside the company. Maybe someone else gets 57 emails. That's still minuscule as a percentage of all the messages that may be relevant to that person. But the rest is completely locked away and only accessible if another human being manually sends it to them. And even that is one message at a time. You have these enormous flows of critical information coursing through the organization. But each person only has this tiny view. Their inboxes are partial and fragmented and radically incomplete. And every single view, the primary window people have to what's going on across the company, every single view is unique. This is nuts. And I guarantee you we will look back at this moment in history shaking our heads and wondering how we ever dealt with it. So what's the alternative? Well, first, let's turn the email into messages. And now, rather than inboxes, we're going to organize those messages in channels. Those channels can correspond to anything. Projects, teams, planning sprints, office locations, business units, literally anything that is happening across the company. Moving the conversations to channels created a huge increase in the return on the communication. The whole team is in the channel, and anytime anyone on the team has an update or a question or a document to share, they just put it into the channel. They type it up once, hit send once, and everyone who needs to know now or in the future is in the loop. So that's why you switch. It makes communication better, collaboration easier, and agility something you can more readily achieve. From inboxes to channels. It's a movement from an individual-first approach to communication to one that puts the team or the organization first. It's so simple, but we believe that the advantages are so great that this shift is inevitable. We believe that every organization will switch to Slack or something like it.
Now, that was their CEO, Stuart Butterfield, and I've watched a lot of his interviews, and I must say that I'm rather impressed with him, and he's definitely one of my favorite CEOs that I like to listen to, and I try to catch all of his interviews. And when I look for a company that I want to own for the long haul, the CEO is very important for me, and I definitely think he's going to be one of the better ones. Chamath Palihapitiya, the founder of Social Capital, owns a 10% stake in Slack. And although I would never buy a stock simply because he or anyone else owns it, I really respect him and value his opinion. So the fact that he's on board, it's definitely a big plus. Now, there are several interviews on YouTube where Chamath expresses his thoughts on Slack that you can search for if you want to learn more about what he has to say, and they're definitely worth watching, and I'll link one in the description for you. If we get to the earnings that were released a couple days ago, I thought the numbers actually looked pretty good, but the stock traded down over $4 a share and hit a low of $24.20. Now, they said they came in at approximately break even on their earnings per share versus a loss of 14 cents a share in the year-ago quarter. And revenue grew 49% to over $215 million. Analysts projected a 3-cent loss and revenue of $209 million, so they beat on that metric. But Slack said billings rose only 25% to $218 million versus an estimate of $228 million, and that's why the stock tanked. Now, Slack said it cut some of its customers some slack, pun intended, on fees because of the pandemic, so I would expect this shortfall to be only temporary. And if I pull up Slack's numbers on Hypercharts, you can see their paid customers has been growing quite steadily from 42,000 in Q1 of 2018 to 130,000 in Q2 of this year. So that's what you want to see for sure. And if we omit operating income on the revenue chart so we can see the growth metrics clearer, we can see that revenue is growing robustly as well, because revenue in Q1 of 2018 came in at $42 million, and in Q2 of this year it grew to $215 million. Now, in my opinion, revenue should continue to grow at around 20% a year for probably the rest of the decade, so Slack should be a bargain at these prices. Now, Slack's main competitor is Microsoft Teams. One of the main reasons I haven't taken the plunge and invested in Slack yet is because I'm not very familiar with their products. I haven't used any of them, so I don't have enough of an understanding, but the more I follow this company, the more I want to invest in it. Now, my wife's employer uses Microsoft's products, so she's familiar with Teams and she loves it. She says it saves her a ton of time and it's much easier to communicate with versus the old email system. So she can definitely see these types of products becoming the business communication standard. All right, so right here we have the daily chart of work. And like I said before, it IPO'd last June, and I like to wait roughly 9 months or so before I get interested in buying an IPO. If you look at a lot of previous IPOs, you can see a lot of them tend to sell off right away and bottom out around 6 to 12 months later. Mainly because they come out a little overpriced to raise money, and then also about 6 months after the IPO, a lot of the early investors or some of the employees, they get the opportunity to sell off their shares, but they usually have to wait about 6 months. But anyway, let me zoom in just a little bit here. But this day right here is when the earnings came out and they disappointed. But as you can see on this chart, there are a lot of clearly defined support and resistance lines on it. Here's one. Here's one. So this chart is starting to become very tradable, even though I'm looking to buy for the long term. And the area that I am really interested in, and probably the main reason I haven't bought yet, I would love to be a buyer in the low 20s. Below 22, I think if it can fall to this support area, this would be my optimal area to start building a position in Slack. Now, right now, I have an opinion that I think the market's going to sell off a little bit more. That's probably why I haven't taken the plunge yet and started the position. But, that might happen, that might not. I might be getting a little greedy, and I might be missing a great opportunity to buy Slack under $30 a share. But you can see that today it's selling off a little bit, and I'm really hoping that I can start my position in this area somewhere. And I think that would be a great place for me to start building a long-term position and adding to it. Yeah, but here is another pretty well-defined resistance area. But the resistance area that would concern me the most in the future would be this one just over $34. You can see that Slack bumped its head up against it 3 times here, and that sent the stock price down quite sharply each time. But I wouldn't worry about that anytime soon, because if I do enter this stock, I want to accumulate it on a weekly basis, and the longer it stays down here in this area, the better for me. I want to accumulate as much as I can. I'm probably going to end up adding this company to my M1 stock portfolio and accumulate it on a weekly basis, because stocks that I want to be into for the next 5 to 10 years, that's the best way to own them, is to dollar cost average into them for the long term, because you're never going to be able to consistently call a top or call a bottom. And when you are buying on a weekly basis, you're dollar cost averaging in. For me anyway, I don't tend to worry about the stock price at all, because I know I'm going to be in it for a long time, and if the stock goes down that week, I'll usually buy just a little bit more. If it goes up, I'll probably end up just buying the regular amount. But that's my plan for this one. If it does come down a little bit lower, I am definitely going to be adding it to my M1 account and accumulating it for the long term. But let me know your thoughts on Slack in the comments section. Are you a shareholder? And what is your forecast for Slack? I would love to hear more about this company, so if you have any other interesting tidbits, please leave that in the comments section for me. But I am going to end the video right here, so thank you so much for watching my video, and until next time, take care, everybody.